Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 5, part 3 of It's All About the CX. Join with me, Barry Rafferty and John Foley as always, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Conor Hogan, who's one of our marketing cloud consultants for the media and gaming industry. So look, again, thank you very much over the last week for your feedback from last week. Some great responses to John Wade's content. I know a lot of people have reached out to him looking for more information around the CMO report. I've had a couple of private messages myself and shared over some links. So again, please feel free, ask the questions, drop myself or John directly questions or queries. And look, we'll also post up Conor's LinkedIn profile as well. He doesn't know that yet, but it's going up there as well. And look, I suppose
one thing I'll mention as well from last week's podcast was the registrations for MCX have gone up.
Yes,
and that's also still open.
Yeah, there's some limited spacing left. We'll talk about it for a couple of minutes towards the end. But look, there's some great registrations for the event. There's some great content. I know as well. We'll probably share a little video from last year's event, just so give people a bit more context about what they can expect at it. Sure, look, we'll further ado, we'll crack on.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Conor, for joining us.
Absolutely.
I think just for the audience, can you give us a bit of an idea of what you do in your role here?
Sure. So I work in the OD division of Oracle, but particularly looking at CX, and underneath that I work in the media, entertainment and gaming verticals. So quite interesting area to work in, quite diverse, and quite, let's say, all three of them are kind of to the forefront of using technology and and it's sort of been quite innovative. Yeah. So for me, great to be part of that sort of vertical. But more importantly, when you're working with customers like that who actually are open and adaptable and curious to see what's coming up next, and let's say the next 5, 6, 8, 9 years, we really have great conversations, and hopefully I'll be able to give you guys an idea of some of the cool things that are happening in both media and gaming today.
Excellent. So we talked about the future in the next 5, 6 years and what the roadmap's like. But what could you give us an idea of the kind of the state of the union? Like kind of an overview of what's going on in the gaming industry at the moment.
Sure, yeah. I mean, gaming is a highly competitive market. UK alone, there's 2,800 or so operating licenses. So that's a huge amount. When you consider the amount of I suppose competition, the amount of players within the market. So one of the things that I think each gaming or gambling company has to be aware of. What is I suppose attracting the customer, and more importantly than anything, rather than the traditional would be called an FTD, a first-time depositor. Mm-hmm. That was the kind of the golden goose. Now it's actually retaining and loyalty, and that's obviously a huge challenge for a lot of these companies, because a blackjack or a casino or a poker game, in its essence, is the same. It's what you do around that. Do you bring in gamification? Do you add on incentives? Do you give them other opportunities to play other games within a platform? Yeah. So really interesting time to be part of it. I think number 2 certainly is the trend to move off from your traditional bricks and mortar, which has been around for 100 odd years, into what some companies are fully online only gaming companies. And again, when you think of the potential of where online gaming is at the moment, in say 2017, 2018, the worldwide revenues for online gaming was about 30 to 40 billion. That's only 10%. It's 300 billion a year market. So it's really only at its infancy. So I do think that, look, you're really sort of, we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and for sure it's only going to go one way. Obviously with more mobile adoption, obviously with more I suppose more access to users as people become more mobile enabled, people become more familiar with gaming via their tablet, via their phone, via their desktop. Look, I think the industry is only going to go one way, and that's much more of the traditional let's say forms of gambling within a bookies or at the racetrack, and now it's going online. And to that point also, the demographics are changing.
Okay.
40% of all online gamblers are females now.
Okay.
And they're not just playing what, traditionally they would have come in and maybe played your bingo sites and something that mightn't have been seen as, let's say, maybe as more, female skewed products. And now they actually are moving into poker, into casino, into slots. So really big growth opportunity and great time to be part of that industry.
All right. So when it comes to the end user for the gaming companies, like you mentioned there, 40% are now female.
Yeah.
Are there any other trends that they're seeing from the end user rather than the gaming that gaming companies should be taking advantage of or focusing on?
I think one of the most important things is to separate out gaming. So you'll have your traditional betting. So betting is like if someone's putting a bet on a football game or on a rugby game. I'm sure during the World Cup there's been a lot of bets, and that's kind of takes up about, let's say, 40 to 45% of all online revenues in gambling. Gaming, by gaming I mean poker, casino, blackjack, your slots, is only about 6 or 7%. So again, that's again a huge area with potential for growth, and they're obviously competing with literally bricks and mortar casinos, people going in to actually play those games in real life, I guess, for want of a better word. And one area that is really growing, and we've certainly seen it here at Oracle, I've had conversations with customers of ours. Lotteries is also a huge one. That still is only about 3%. I think we forget that lottery is a form of gambling, a form of gaming, and because your granny does, and everyone kind of does lottery, but that essentially is the ultimate potential or the ultimate area of growth within gaming, I feel, certainly, and definitely some of the conversations we're having with customers of ours, they're really keen to to make that experience as easy and as enjoyable and obviously as rewarding for their customers.
Yeah, for sure. With that as well, when you're talking about the industry, and you talked at the very, very beginning that it's a fast-moving industry.
Sure.
Like when we look at finance, for example, the pillars within the industry, within the banks, are kind of slow to move.
Sure.
Are you seeing the same type of trends within gaming, like the likes of PIII, Betfair, or any of those companies? Are they?
No, I don't think they'd be as let's say maybe as slow to move as finance. No, I think they're quite innovative. And look, number one, the majority of them have shareholders to answer to, or they have. There's been a lot of mergers in the last few years. So if you look, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, there would have been, certainly, 5 or 6 main dominant players. A lot of them have actually joined forces together. Number of reasons behind that. Number one, just consolidation of actual customers. So if one one company is particularly strong in sportsbook, let's say PIII, and then another one is particularly strong within a casino or a poker products, then again it makes sense for them to join together rather than compete. Number two, quite recently, 2 states in America, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, have now opened their states for online gaming. It's kind of predicted by sort of 2023, 24, about half of all states in the US will allow online gambling gaming, and that's a massive game changer, of course. This is a country that 370 odd million people, with I suppose the attraction of playing something new, and of they have the experience of certainly companies like FanDuel, which was a fantasy sport, and that was incredibly successful. So we can only imagine when it actually opens that out to all forms of gaming. Again, not just the sports book, but also the casino, poker, etc. So look, it's one of these areas where I think the customer is going to be well serviced, but it's only going to be as well serviced as when the companies themselves realize what is important and what is actually going to work for the client. Again, it's all about loyalty.
Yeah. And then you mentioned as well, sorry Barry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so this is fantastic insight that you're giving us in the industry. And one of the big statements you made in your first point was around the retention and loyalty.
Yeah.
How are they adapting modern customer experience practices to maintain and keep them loyal? Like what's the average life cycle of a punter?
Yeah, I mean, customer? It's a good question. Again, it depends on what product you have, but certainly, anecdotally, it's known that if you someone who's going to gamble on golf or let's say tennis, they're going to be a more, let's say, I'd imagine they'd be a more, let's say, prepared player. They will have done their research. They will be betting on, let's say, tournaments you've never considered, the ATP Tour in Sarajevo, for example, and they will be people who aren't here. Go put a $5 on the Grand National or bet on Liverpool on the weekend, or just you're sort of what we'd call let's say a low volume punter. Whereas if you have someone who's going to bet on particular sports like that, that's where the market should focus on, because that they'll obviously have a higher deposit, and more importantly, what they will actually play or what they will bet will actually be a lot higher. And in terms of that, obviously some bookmakers will make themselves will have more data around those particular sports, will have more information, more opportunities to actually bet on them alone. I mean, in some cases, obviously there are companies that don't focus particularly on those areas, or let's say niche sports within gaming. The average lifetime, or let's say the average time that someone will gamble with a company, it's about 4 to 5 months. And really one of the areas you see is, on anyone's phone at any stage, you might have 3 or 4 different gambling apps on their phone, and whoever sends them, a particular, let's say you get if you deposit £20, you will get another £20 in chips for one of their poker games, or you might get an opportunity to play one of their casino games, and that's incentivized, because at the end of the day, the odds generally are in and around the same. You're not going to find a huge disparity between what company A does and what company B does. And it's what around that you can offer the customer to keep them engaged, keep them on site. And again, look, for sure, it's all about mobile at this stage. And whoever has, let's say, the easiest app, the most accessible app, the app that you can actually go on and ideally within a 2 to 3 step process, find your actual product, find the game you want to engage in, and then go ahead and do that within as little steps as possible. They're going to be, obviously quite successful. And, I think that just sort of is common sense, really.
Thanks.
Sure.
With that as well, just going back to something you mentioned at the very beginning, is that currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's 300 billion a year in the UK market.
No, this is worldwide. So worldwide. So 300 billion. And look, that's these are figures that account for. I mean, we don't know how much is bet on the table in Macau every night, do we?
Right,
but
exactly.
that might not be let's say listed.
Yeah.
But look, these are figures that well, let's say industry standard figures. And I think one of the important things to link that to is 11% of all internet traffic is now gambling.
Yeah,
and that's massive. Wow. I mean, think about that. I mean, 11% of all display traffic on the internet is purely down to gaming and gambling. Look, try and even quantify that. It'll take you 10 years. Yeah. So again, this is something that they're a disruptor in that sense as well. They actually are knocking out people who could go onto social media, who could go onto other platforms, who could go onto news sites, publishers. So gaming in itself isn't just the function of going and placing money on something. It's entertainment, and people will go on and they will look at tutorials on how to play poker. I mean, I've done it myself. I've spent many a night watching Poker Stars tournaments, and you have the camera under the transparent table, and you're seeing what the guys. That's how it's evolved, and that's how company Poker Stars in particular were quite successful. And that's really how they built their brand around these, let's say, entertainment, focused tournaments. And again, that's another part of the gambling vertical, or the gambling area that we do have to consider. It's not just purely transactional; it's also an entertainment business.
So if you take, for example, right, you're talking 300 billion globally in the annual revenue. But if somebody is only spending 4 to 5 months on a particular platform, if you could turn that into 6 months or 7 months, can you imagine the significant
exactly
increase in revenue to that company?
It's massive, and again, that's why I kind of opened up saying it is quite. It's in its infancy for sure. It's only 10% of all revenues, and again, I think the big game changer is certainly to come along in the next, even now, but certainly coming down the line. We're going to have cryptocurrency being used in gambling for sure. That's certain. You also games that are built on blockchain, and again, that's something that look, again, it's in an infancy. We've used the word blockchain. We've even, think about AI. 20 years ago, we had a computer first play the world champion in chess.
Yeah.
Surely now they're going to develop that into poker playing.
Yeah.
That's going to be a risk for these companies. Now, will they have to move out of that area as AI gets better? And so again, it really is, quite a. I wouldn't say, it's not a mature vertical by any means yet.
No.
And whoever is going to be successful, obviously, without a shadow of doubt, is going to be the person who obviously first of all acquires those FTDs, the first-time depositors, but more importantly, to keep them on board and keep them engaged, keep them playing, keep them gaming. And yeah, look, it's it's something certainly here in Oracle that we discuss on a daily basis with our customers. How exactly do they improve their retention? How do they actually get their average order value, let's say the average deposit value, to that level that they will ensure our customers are successful?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I attended an event back in June, which was actually which Conor had organised in the H Club, and that particular night, I suppose one of the particular focus was around our Bluekai DMP platform, and a lot of the conversations that we were having with customers that night was very much around how do they find these particular people that they're looking for, and like some of the. I suppose some of the conversations off the back of that. I know you're still involved with with a couple of customers around, but can you just kind of maybe give us some insight into why they would look at a Bluekai or a data management platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, anytime we speak to a customer, there's not really a lack of data problem. It's how they actually segment their data, and I think that's quite an important difference. So you'll never really come across the issue that we don't have data. We have it. We just don't know how to extract it. We don't know how to manipulate it. We don't know how to actually use that particular, let's say, data set within our overall data to bring someone into market, to target them, to attract them, whether that be in media, whether that be in entertainment, whether that be in gaming. And something like a DMP is quite crucial to that, because again, that gives the customer the opportunity to focus on particular areas. So, like I was saying earlier on, 40% of online gamers in the UK are now females. Now, traditionally, they would have, like I said, mostly gone onto the bingo sites, or mostly maybe gone onto slot sites. Now we're looking at an opportunity to be able to target them based on user behavior. So we'll have a data set of, let's say, 1,000 people who've previously gone onto the customer's site, they've deposited money, they've played, they've engaged. Well, what led them to that point? And we were able to see that through a DMP. Where did they visit before that? What influenced them to get them to that point? What are their habits? Is there a particular time of day? Do they spend more if they use iOS compared to Android? Are they on the weekends more likely to engage rather than the weeknights? And look, they're very small data points, but with Bluekai you obviously have, it can be infinite essentially.
Yeah, but I like those little nuggets of information that then they can take kind of back in things. And I suppose if you're driving, then we'll say the traffic towards your site, how can you kind of maximize that potential when they do click through onto the website? Yeah,
that's the essence of it. That's finding out. So what ideally you need is a certain cohort of people that have already gone and looked and acted and behaved in the same way you want your ideal customer. I mean, it's sort of lookalike modeling, I guess, for want of a better word, and or mirroring, and you will be able to use that data to guide you when you do want to. For example, someone might have a campaign where they're spending significant amounts of money in buying media online. Okay, for sure, 60% of it will go on Google, and another 20% will go on Facebook. Fine, and everyone accepts that. There's still another 30% or so that is left out there in the ether, and that's on display. So do I go to the Daily Mail sports side, or do I go to the Guardian finance section? Where do I put my ad so it's seen in front of the right person at the right time? And more importantly, with a call to action. This is not branding, essentially. You want a direct response. You want someone to engage with you there and then. And that's the crucial thing around, using a DMP and using the power of a DMP to ensure that you're not wasting. I mean, wastage is, besides ad fraud, wastage is one of the biggest problems within the media entertainment business, because you are sending a lot of ads out to people that might not necessarily even want to see it. Well, okay, that's really inefficient use of your media budget.
Yeah, and that's very relevant, especially with your previous background
Sure.
in print advertisement as well.
So it's just one of these areas that, you know, we're having great conversations with people, and like I said, they all have data. It's just a matter of let's getting that, focusing it, and segmenting it out, and then ensuring that you're hitting the right person at the right time. And you know, Maxymiser is a great example of that. You know, we have here in Oracle, and we can A/B test a landing page. And for example, if I put we've done this with some of our customers, we put the betting slip on the top right hand corner when it's for football, it seems to have a better result. But when we have it for horse racing on the bottom right hand, it seems to have a better result. So why is this? We don't, you know, and this is how you A/B test. This is how you actually manipulate your own landing page depending on who visits it. So we actually have the ability to dynamically change the landing page based on who is coming to that site. So we know that's the best experience they will have as they navigate throughout your actually landing page to the point of conversion, which is obviously the reason, you know, people want to work with us.
And I love how simple Maxymiser is.
For sure,
to actually use and to implement. You know, it's a very simple line of code that goes into the website.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, I mean, it's a piece of JavaScript. It's dropped in the browser, and you know, in terms of, you know, implementation and setup, it's I mean, even I can demo it, put it that way, and I'm the least technical person in the world. But I've actually had
you heard that? Conor Hogan will demo Maxymiser.
I will, and have had good experience doing it so far. So yeah, look, that's the beauty of it. And I suppose one of the most important things for anyone is, look, we need to see an ROI. You know, you can't wait 12, 14, 16 months, and this is something, and it's similar to what a DMP can prove. You will see a return, you know, within the first 3 to 6 months, and again, depending on the volumes of campaign you're running, of course. But there's a tangible difference, and you know, any CMO or any let's say marketing executive, anyone who's in control of a budget, and it is particularly, you know, keen to see what actually will benefit will that bring. Well, if I spend X, will I get, you know, two or three times that in return, whatever the metric is. Well, particularly with those two products, it's really, really transparent on how quickly you will get it back. And I suppose the most important thing is, obviously, both being Oracle products, they completely work, and they're wholly integrated with each other, so they completely complement each other, along with obviously some of our other tools, such as Eloquent Responses when you have your email marketing arm of your campaign as well.
And I suppose one of the good things about the products as well, they're open REST APIs.
Yeah.
You can plug them into other CRMs, of
course,
if you're using them too. So again, we just put. I think that's a really powerful statement what you said about being able to prove the ROI, the return on investment.
Absolutely.
Like there's IT teams, there's marketing teams, there's financial teams. If a budget is allocated to a project, and I think it's been able to use our tool sets and actually prove the return of investment. I think that's really powerful statement. And do you know, if I had a bell here, I'd ping it, because you were talking a lot about data. I think there's so much data out there. Companies are generating data at a phenomenal amount of speed at the moment, but been able to do something properly with it, to segment it, to dedupe it, to actually kind of, I suppose, get it to a point where you're going to get value, again, a return of investment. I think you know, the conversations you're having, these companies are going to see a return of investment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, there's been sort of the life of a CMO is 3 years. You know, we're not talking a long time for these for someone to make an impact. So they have to be very sure where they're putting their budget into, and you know, that's something that, you know, obviously we all understand that when we're speaking to our, you know, customers or potential customers, and that's something it's critical that they get that right. And once you're able to go through you know, a 3, 6, 9 month, 12 month plan with them, give them a correct roadmap, give them what they should expect to see return. I think that really is important to someone, and makes their let's say, makes their judgment and makes their choice a lot easier. You know, we hope, of course, it's going to be Oracle, but that's something that, you know, particularly when I'm speaking to potential customers of ours, that's, you know, something that, yeah, it has to come in the first or second conversation. It's that important, you know.
Yeah, and it needs, and I resonate with what Conor's saying. Like you've got to be very upfront about, you know, what our asks are as consultants. You know, look, we want to have conversations where with customers who are looking to innovate, who are looking to, I suppose, capture new markets. They're looking to work smarter, like some of the areas as well that we've touched on a little bit around AI and blockchain. Like these are coming in thick and fast, very, very fast, and I know in other industries that they are kind of happening very, very quickly. Like look, in the finance world, it is a very heavily regulated environment. The gaming world as well. I know that, you know, different geographies have different regulations that they have to adhere to as well. So exactly, you know, there's a lot in terms of communications that has to be monitored.
Sure.
I think we've kind of discussed some of the tools in the likes of our retail conversations with Virgo when we were talking about responses. But I do know for a fact that one of our biggest gaming company or users is a massive user of our responses tool.
Sure.
They use it for communication through in-app messaging. They use it to push through for text. You know, it's a really good way of actually giving people information on the fly.
Yeah.
Especially with live football matches, basketball matches, it doesn't matter what the live sport is, but being able to push through information to try get them to spend more money immediately.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, I took over there.
No.
One thing you mentioned, one thing you mentioned there, Barry, was new markets, and you mentioned as well, Conor, about the 2 states that are now open in the US.
Sure.
So if I'm a UK market, one of the things I'll be thinking of, how do I take an opportunity like that? Because I have my own data. Am I looking at lookalike audiences now, or is it completely different? Am I focused on maximizing now to actually see if there's different changes within the interactions customers are taking? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's obviously that market's in its infancy, so the styles or the habits of gambling are completely different. I mean, you know, we've had, you know, traditional gambling in the UK and Ireland for over 100 years, and that would have started with, you know, bookies at race meets and the football pools, for example, which, you know, Peaky Blinders, exactly. But that's why our market is incredibly mature. When you look at the US, for example, I mean, I alluded to earlier on, esports and fantasy games were huge, and you know, that's kind of, you know, the genesis of this push to actually get these states to each legalize online gaming, online gambling. But you'll have different sports over there. You'll have college sports. That's a huge area that you know, we've never, you know, really got involved in. You'll also have many different markets over there. So you have a huge Latino community over there. You also have a huge, what I would consider a market that are looking specifically. A game like baseball has 188 games a season.
Yeah.
And in each game there can be, you know, 45 different actions between each pitcher and batter on the mound. So again, the in-game betting opportunities are actually vast within US sports. And again, look, it's still early days, and like I said, there's only 2 states. It's Pennsylvania and New Jersey. But for sure, in the next 2 to 5 years, now again, America being a federal country, it has to be done on a state-by-state basis. It's not a catch-all.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, you know, one thing's for sure: if the U.S. government can tax it, they'll enable it. Yeah. That's, you know, we've seen that with many other, you know, recent products, let's say, you know, to go into the market. So yeah, it's going to grow.
Another thing to take into consideration is globalization of some of these American sports. So you've got American football playing in Tottenham Hotspur's new stadium a couple of times a year, and they've signed a contract for a number of years. I think the O2 also hosts a number of basketball games each year as well. So like there's a lot of globalization of American sports. So
Yeah,
there is massive potential there.
There is massive, and you know, I think one of the other experiences that that Americans want to enjoy is, as much as they want to see their US sports. I think football is going to be huge, or they'll call it soccer, of course, but that's something that, again, as the game grows, as the popularity of it. So instead of just them knowing about the World Cup once every 4 years, you have Champions League now. You'll have Liverpool and Man United and Chelsea broadcasting across the states. Which is already happening. Yeah, it is already happening. And from that, the US market, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, if we just look at net income or GDP per person, look, they are going to be quite they're going to be quite strong. In terms of what they're actually willing to play with, what they're actually going to engage with these companies that have got into the US market. So yeah, look, while I said overall it's new, or sorry, it's in its infancy, let's say, it's still really, really a massive area for growth. And look, pretty much all the big players from Europe and the UK have gone in there already. But like I said at the start, there's 2,800 gambling licenses in the UK alone. You look in America, there could be 20,000. So it's so it's massive. And obviously, a company, we're fortunate to be in a company like Oracle that does obviously have, we're an American company. Let's first and foremost. So we certainly would be, at the forefront of that, I'm sure, with our colleagues in the US working with American gambling companies.
Yeah, look, we had also as well some major announcements from Oracle Open World, where our CTO Larry Ellison made some massive statements in terms of Oracle's globalization, and he's committed, to putting more and more data centers online, providing all our different services. So that's everything from infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, right the way through to our SaaS applications, which is the area that we all work in. And I think for us, kind of given the global reach, myself and Conor actually had another conversation, slightly off topic, but as we're on the subject of kind of globalization, like if you watch the Premier League, I do, Conor does.
I do too.
He's a rugby guy, but like if you look at the jerseys and what's on the jerseys, like we were just, you were just telling me.
I mean, look, it's I think what is it, 15 of the Championship and Premier League companies are sponsored by Chinese gambling companies who have no intention of operating in the UK. All the hoardings around, their digitally dynamic hoardings, they're all obviously in Chinese. And that's because it's been broadcast to 600 odd million people back in China. So again, that shows, the globalization, the strength of Premiership football alone. But actually, it's more than that. It's gaming, gambling. Sports betting is the route in for many of these people. They want to get them onto the poker. They want to get them onto the casino. They want to get them onto the blackjack games. But yeah, it is incredible. I mean, who would have thought it? That we do now have fully fledged Chinese, Asian gaming, gambling companies that are only looking for Asian players,
customers,
but they're using the Premiership as that platform, as that advertising tool to get them in there. And look, it's innovative and it obviously works. It wouldn't be doing it if it didn't,
No, definitely.
So I'll just finish up with one last question.
Sure.
But one thing you mentioned as well at the very beginning was the partnerships. And I was thinking, sure, if people are only with an account for 3-4 months, then if there's a partnership happening, there's information on one person there, so deduping must be massive.
Of course, yeah, exactly. I mean, you can imagine, when you have two big players, player A, player B, joined together, there obviously will be crossover. And look, traditionally, I think that would have been an absolute nightmare. You have multiple email addresses, multiple contacts, multiple phone numbers. We're obviously in the era of post GDPR as well. Let's not forget. So yeah, look, that is an absolute crucial point of, I suppose it's probably one of the first actual actions that they will have to take, is ensuring, how clean, that there's no duplicates, that they aren't, engaging with the wrong contacts. Again, something that certainly, we here in Oracle, are quite experienced with, and, something that we've done on many occasions in the past.
And then finally for 2020, you mentioned blockchain, which I was very interested to hear.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain is like every year there's a buzzword, and like the last few years it was Bitcoin. Now it was AI, and now it's blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So look, it's definitely something that comes up a lot in conversations, and it's definitely one of these things. But we haven't even seen what the potential of Bitcoin yet.
Right.
So I while I would say that that's something, games will be built on blockchain, and that's more for security purposes. That's more for encryption purposes. That's more about the transactional area of it. When you're actually giving a credit card, when you're giving a debit card, the blockchain will obviously provide that extra layer of security. Look, again, the original point stands. Only 10% of all revenue in gambling is online. So for sure, that will obviously grow, and with that, more innovation will come. And again, as I mentioned previously, the gaming and gambling companies, I've certainly found in my experience are definitely quite innovative and definitely quite open to trying and testing new ways, really, of growing their brands and obviously acquiring and keeping customers.
Oh, thanks very much, Conor.
Cool.
Yeah, look. Delighted you actually sat down and had a chat with us today.
Took a while.
It has. Look,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not easy just with crossover of calendars and travel between us all. So look, thanks very much.
Absolutely.
All my conversations with you, I always find are always very insightful, and I always learn something new just having a chat. Look, if you want a Maxymiser demo, definitely talk to Conor. Definitely talk to Conor. It's one of the simplest tools we have, but it's so powerful, and it gives a really quick ROI. But look, if you've any questions, in terms of anything that we've discussed today, look, fire the questions over at us. And I suppose, have you anything else there, John?
All I'll mention is, again, MCX.
Yeah.
Still open. If you want to register, we'll throw the link up there. And as well as that, like I mentioned every time, it's about the breakout sessions. When you're talking to your peers, when you've got like a product specialist there at the table as well, you can talk about your own experiences. Because each company, like you mentioned there, it's not about the initial deposit.
Yeah.
It's about getting a lifetime value.
For sure.
Whereas another industry will have a different area, so therefore it's more about getting. So if I'm selling a coffee machine, it's about selling the capsules afterwards. So figuring out exactly what your challenges are and how the software can help.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, we know John likes a good breakout session.
I love a breakout session.
Well, look, guys, thanks very much for listening, and look, we'll be back next week. We've got something different again coming over the next couple of weeks. A couple of surprise interviews that we're going to be doing. So, thanks very much.
Have a productive week.